All right, so my name is Brandon Decker. Today's date is October 20th. I'm speaking with Jim Surkamp, who is from Shepherdstown. We're recording this interview for the Shepherd Speaks StoryCorps project, a program under the Center for Appalachian Studies and Communities at Shepherd University, in partnership with the National Storytelling Project. Share a story about a particular time, event, or person in your life that affected the course of your life for better or for worse. What were the details, ramifications, outcomes, and or what are your feelings today about this event or time? It sounds like we got a Muhammad Ali story.
We do. It's the kind of thing where I'm almost reluctant. I lived in New York City and right in Manhattan in 1979, when you could still find your rent in your sofa. And I was living at Waverly Place, within sight of Washington Square. The place, I was paying $575 for a big apartment, and it sold for $1.3 million in recent years.
Oh my gosh.
Say I'm at 119 Waverly Place. It's a big apartment, and I'm subletting for $575 to a man who's a screenwriter away for a year in Hollywood. And I came up with some roommates. The first two roommates, and I'll have to keep this brief because the whole thing is like a Ken Kesey kind of Kool-Aid acid test thing. Bill and Rich. A piece of advice is never offer an apartment rental to a guy who has officially taken a vow of poverty.
I can see that could become a problem.
Yeah, Bill had a big guru beard, and he used to always speak in long, round terms. He had his own handmade set of tarot cards, and he'd always say, whereupon this, and whereupon that. and he and Rich had a mode of a way of making a living. They would sell what he called Midas the Magic Mouse.
Okay.
There's one night where Rich is in the front room, and Greenwich Village is wonderful back then. You know, everything's all night. The groceries open at 2 a.m. and just dynamite. So, I went to my first Rocky Horror show right behind me, and everybody knew what to say. If I looked out my front window, one block was Folk City, where Dylan first played.
Really?
You turn around and walk down the whole back to the back and look out the back, you saw the back of Electric Ladyland.
Oh my gosh.
Hendrix Studio. I'm like at the nerve center of everything. I kid you not.
Amazing.
But you see, the most important thing is don't try. It will find you.
Yeah.
And I was starting to loosen up. I was doing corporate things. I had a job in the World Trade Center with ADT. I knew how to write. I could always get jobs. But I started, watch out, meditating. And I let things happen. Just went with the flow. So here we are. Get this out of the way. And of course, you could edit it. But I remember Rich saying, I think we better commence with the manufacturing process. And I didn't know what he meant. He'd lay out newspapers, and then he'd lay out all these little plastic dime store mice, like regiments.
Yeah.
And with a big handful of gray rubber band, which is tails, that are going to be attached to the mice, and a huge can of gold spray. Okay, I made a big mistake. Forget the tails. He had a big band of polyfilament. And it was going to connect the mouse to their shirt button and do this whole thing like this.
Yeah.
He has him walking on his imaginary two hands, and the mouse goes as Midas the Magic Mouse, and he's got his hands in front of him like sidewalk. Makes his way through the corridors of Wall Street. And he moves and makes the mouse look like he's moving on his hands. He might make a turn to the left to Goldman Sachs, or he might make a turn to the right. So they do this whole rap, and then people will give them a bunch of money, and they go buy some falafel. That is their occupation.
Okay.
Then things started getting interesting because they couldn't pay the rent, Oh, they got through 1 month. The two men could find $150 for 1 month. And then when they can't find the rent for the second month, we took a vow of poverty. This is when the day comes, the last day of the month comes and the money is due. And Bill would look out the window and say, "It sure is a really beautiful day today, isn't it?" you're not going to make me bum out, are you? Because I need to ask for the rent.
Yeah.
And finally I said, look, you got to go. But they kind of were around, but they weren't there anymore. Who comes next? A guy I'll never forget, one of the best collaborations ever. His name was Arnold David Clapman. Great artist and a conga drum player for Richie Havens.
Mm-hmm.
You know who that is. He was the opening act of Woodstock.
I'm not super familiar
Sure,
with
sure. He had to play almost 3 hours. But he's my generation. Then it gets more complicated. My roommate says, we meet a guy through Richie Havens, and it turns out this other guy works with Muhammad Ali, named Arthur. Arthur had made $600,000 because Ali gave him the rights to all T-shirts with his name on it. He has persuaded Ali to be one of the people to support an album promoting healthy food, kids eating nutritious food. And he was getting everybody from Frank Sinatra and everybody to take part in this thing. And when Ali is your friend, everybody says yes. This is going to get somewhere really fast. Arnie said to them, I can do you a children's book on this. Suddenly, my apartment is a workshop with a lot of artists with storyboards doing Arnie's storyboards. And it is how Muhammad Ali fights Mr. Tooth Decay. That's what we're doing. We're fighting Mr. Tooth Decay. So I pick up my phone one morning, and it's Marlo Thomas from that period, and she said, "Is Arthur there?" She said, no. And then I pick up the phone one other morning, and the guy says, "Babalu." What? Who do you want? Morrison. Who's calling? Ali. If you're Ali, you can just say Babalu. And that was a genuine call because he was using my apartment. And next thing you know, we're at a boxing match with the head of Toys R Us, and Ali's fighting. Bill Raphael is swapping poems in the Plaza Hotel with Ali. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Arthur says, Jim, let's go have a beer at Shakespeare's. I want to talk to him. He's a really fast-talking kind of guy. And we're having a drink. Very handsome black guy. And we're talking, and hold on now. He says, Jim, do you know how my daddy died? I said, no, Arthur, I don't know. He died in the electric chair. And I'm starting to cover my eyes like, oh, God, Arthur. And he didn't even do it. I'm going, oh, Arthur, gosh. Wow. That's why the champ loves me. We are scheduled to get to Washington, D.C. in September. The storyboards and everything. And we're all going to stay at the Four Seasons, courtesy of a food chain called A&P, which is now gone. And they are going to sponsor and to put the children's book through all of an album through their stores. And in addition, there's going to be a fight on the mall in the foot of the Washington Monument, which did happen, where Ali fights Mr. Tooth Decay. That was Chuck Wepner as Mr. Tooth Decay. Very normal day. Very, very, very normal day. Now, that was the day where everything went south. This is this is a hell of a story. I was in a meditating thing. I was meditating a lot, really doing that a lot. And I was meditating with a man whose name was Sri Chinmoy. Very good reputation. He did meditations at the UN. People like Carlos Santana meditated with him. I remember seeing Carlos Santana sitting on the floor in a meditating circle with him. So I'm deep into that, and get this. Someone told me who was with Chinmoy. I just meditated weekly. He said, Ali, Chinmoy and Ali are very close. Oh, my goodness. And the man said, Chinmoy could look at a person and see all their past lives, okay? And the man told me, who was another Chimnoy person, said he believes that Ali was Muhammad in a past life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, just salt that away, whatever. Sure, thank you very much. What's next? And so what happened was I brought a book by Chimnoy down to D.C. with my girlfriend. And just because, I was going to give it to him. Mm-hmm. It's the night before the fight, so to speak, on the mall. And there's Ali, and he's got all his guys around him, his protectors and stuff. And I shook his hand, and it was like a big lamb chop, just swallowed my hand. This big, huge, beefy
like
hand.
Catcher's mitt.
Yeah, and he's the coolest guy in the world. He just so relaxed. Everything's cool. And then I slipped the book to him. The next morning, I saw one of these guys and his buddies who was standing there next to me. I said, I gave Ali last night a book from Sri Chimnoy. He said, you did? You're the guy who did it? He was reading that last night. In other words, his thoughts, he's getting into changing his headspace. This is where the story winds up. Here we are in the Four Seasons with A&P executives and Arthur over here, Ali, and the press. Arnie's over here, and me, and all the story. We're all there for breakfast, and it's a press conference. Arthur wasn't paying anybody. He was using Ali's name, running up a girl's credit card. He just wasn't paying anybody.
Oh no!
And he's telling the A&P guys, "This is my friend Jim, my buddy. I knew him at Princeton. He didn't go to Princeton. I didn't go to Princeton." Yeah, just fast and furious and crazy.
Yeah,
but a real crook. Now, I can say all this because he's no longer with us. So, Ali, you remember it's like a little transformation kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And he says to one girl who was hired to make puppets, all these people were hired to do things. He went down around and goes like this, "You young lady, what did you do? I made puppets. Did you get paid?" "No." He looks around again. Now you have to understand, Arnie is like a super cool guy, you know, super good, and conga guy.
Yeah.
And he says, "You, the soy boy, you." And Arnie stands up, and he's the kind of guy that got a cigarette here in the leather wrist. Mm-hmm. And he says, "What about you? Did you get paid?" And he goes, "Same number."
Same number.
Ali says, "Turn off your microphones," looking at the press. And he says, "Arthur," he's right over there, "Arthur Morrison is a jive."
Phew.
It's over.
I can see it goes downhill quick from there.
But talk about good man, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to let this stick to him.
Yeah, he's standing up for him, for everyone that got ripped off.
Yeah, he's a jive. And so that I remember later that evening we had this real bummed out kind of dinner, and people were singing, but everyone was so bummed out, right? And the last image I saw was Ali was kind of walking fast, and here's Arthur kind of like hoppity chasing after him from wanting more, and Ali goes, "I don't care how your daddy died." It's all over, and many years later, I Googled Arthur, wound up in prison. And he died in prison.
Oh man.
He's the kind of person who would say, some guy says, "Man, you ripped me off. You didn't pay me. You told me to." And Arthur, to his face, would say, "Oh man, those are the breaks. What's the whole point?" Ali was a seriously good man. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that little chance thing that I wanted to share with him might have I think he slept on it, because it's very spiritual writing about love and everything. Mm-hmm. And if he already knew Chimnoy, I might have had a hand in that. End of story.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's
I've
incredible.
Never
it
told
really
anybody
is.
that. I've never. Don't you love that Babalu?